Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the FutureBox Startup Webinar Series. Today, with the topic from prototype to production. My name is Thomas Andersen. I'm a business developer here at FutureBox, and I would like to start with just running through the agenda with you guys. I will say a few brief words about FutureBox, so you know who we are and where we're from and what we do. And then I will introduce our product developer, Morten Mogensen, who will share what he knows about what to consider when choosing your production partner. And then we have also invited CEO David Fleischer from a FutureBox startup, MyWire, to share some of his personal experiences when going through this process. I'm very much looking forward to this. I'm super excited about this program. Oh, and one thing is also that we would like to offer you guys who are participating here today that you can reach out after this webinar to me. My contact details are here, and schedule a coffee meeting with me or my colleague Jesper and Morten for some one-on-one individual feedback on your production setup. I know that Morten, he has time actually this Thursday this week, so that's an opportunity. For you to know what FutureBox is, FutureBox is a startup incubator positioned in DTU Science Park in Lyngby at the campus of the Danish Technical University. We have 4 to 5 startups here in FutureBox working every day side by side. I have a short 1-minute video that I'd like to show you just so you can get a feel for the environment here in the box. Here goes. All right, so that's FutureBox in brief. So to just to run through that briefly, as I said, FutureBox is a startup incubator for deep tech startups. So startup founders work here every day, door to door. There's a great community among the entrepreneurs and startups here. They use each other to, you know, ask the questions that they can't get the answers for on Google. We also have a workshop here in the building that many of the startups are making great use of. The Technical University is right in our backyard, so a lot of the startups here benefit from being able to recruit student assistants or collaborate with the researchers from the different research departments. We have a long range of experts and mentors that we match the startups in the building up with so that they can get the advice and sparring that they need on their journey. One of those offers is our mentoring program in which we offer startups here a team of mentors. So that's a group of 3 mentors that they work with throughout a 6-month period. And one of our experts is Morten, who is our in-house product developer and whom you can also book a one-on-one sparring meeting with after this seminar. And Morten, I will turn the screen to you for the next part. I'll stop sharing my screen so you can take over.
Hello, everyone. I will just share my screen. All right, looks like it's working. Perfect. Yeah, welcome to my part of the webinar. I will be talking a little about from the technical side, how to find the right production partner. First, a little about myself. My name is Morten Mogensen. I'm a senior consultant in the consultancy company Capture This. I'm also a chairman of the board in another company I'm a co-owner in, and I'm also working as a product development director for another company. The reason why I'm here in Futurebox is because I have experience within product development. I started my own company in 2010, Butchers and Bicycles, which I worked on from the beginning, sketching the first parts of the product until setting up production in Taiwan, changing the production facilities in Taiwan, and in these days actually updating the production for new stuff coming up. We just won a Danish Design Award this year, so that's pretty great. I also work for this engineering consultancy, Beer. I have been working for Nofred, which makes furnitures, and worked for Jabra, who makes headsets, make their roadmap for their previous products they launched. I also worked for Vestas more than 3 years. Front-end development, wind turbine design, have 10 patents there. So that's a little about myself. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a part of the Futurebox in the DTU Science Park. Yep. In relation to finding the right production partners, I put 4 main headlines to consider. One of them is what kind of factors to consider when choosing the right production partner. I'll be looking a little about the supply chain strategy. How does that relate for choosing relevant production partners? Alibaba or Albertslund, how to choose, where to choose. I'll be talking a little about agreements and contracts, how to set that up with the right for the right production partner. The first one is the factors to consider when choosing a production partner. So basically, when you see this diagram I made for this presentation, there is on the x-axis from prototype production until mass production, from like, depending on what kind of product, of course, from 30 units to more than 3,000. On the y-axis, from simple one component product to the other end, it's the complex one, where you have mechanics, you have electronics, you have databases, you have apps, you have medical and stuff like this. When you have that, that's kind of a complex product. So how to deal with that? I divided this diagram into 3 different locations. As a local one, it could be Denmark if you're situating there. East Europe, there's a lot of production going on there. And then Far East, when to choose the different suppliers or the manufacturers in these regions. Basically, you have from component supplier, where you purchase on a component level, and on the other hand, you have the one box supplier, where you actually just by having one product, you're just ordering one item number from one supplier that delivers everything to you. So that means the product, the casing, the manuals, all the stuff. So how to deal with these kind of things? This is some of the things we'll be looking at today. So how do you go from a batch 0 production, which normally is more like a component supplier level, where you buy all the components, maybe you put them together yourself to find out if there is any child diseases in your product, and then you're more sure, and then maybe you go into a batch more where you have components, or maybe you go to a one box supplier and then maybe in East EU, where you try to set up a production where they deliver the whole thing in one package. So this is some of the factors that we'll be looking at. This relates pretty heavily to what kind of strategy do you have for your supply chain. So if you come and ask me, how could we deal with this kind of production partner, or how to find this kind of thing, then the first thing I will ask about, what does your strategy for your supply chain look like? What kind of main components do we have? Where are they situated? Are they different type of products? How does it combine with your company? Are you going to deliver some stuff yourself, or how does a one-box supplier fit into this? So one of the first things you would like to know when choosing this kind of production partner, either if it's for a component level or for one box level, is how is your supply chain looking like? And that could look like something like this. This is an example. How to choose Alibaba, Far East, or Albertslund, the local one in the backyard. I just set up some different variants here. For example, the Far East versus the local one. So in the Far East, you have low prices versus higher prices. You have high volume versus low volume. You have long lead times versus shorter lead times. You have a complex quality management, and you have a user-friendly quality management when you have it in your backyard. No changes to design, you're pretty fixed. And if you have it in the backyard, maybe they're more flexible. You can have changes to the design on the different batches that you produce. Far East, difficult accessible. It's not. It takes a little more planning to get to the Far East. Be there for a period of time, especially in these days, where it's way easier accessible when you have your production partner in the backyard. In the Far East, there's an overwhelming number of manufacturers. Maybe there is like 100,000 different kind of manufacturers that it could actually use. Whereas in the local backyard, you probably have a little more than a handful of different manufacturers. So this is on a high level where you kind of look at what is the differences in between the Far East and the close manufacturers. So what kind of factors do I need to consider when looking for a production partner or a manufacturer? Well, I just put up a list here. This is not a complete list. This is just examples of what kind of things do you need to consider. So when you come and ask me, okay, can you share some suppliers with us that can produce this kind of things? Then I will ask, okay, this kind of things here. What is your yearly forecast? Year 1, 2, and 3. What are the batch sizes? Do you need to produce your stuff under following standards? Do you need a clean room production? Is it a medical device? Is there electronic? Is there software? Is there plastic molding? Mechanics? Is there battery? What is the quality standard that you need to fulfill? Is it price sensible? Maybe it's not, maybe it is. Is there a cost target? Is there a lead time for production? Is there a shipment lead time? Do you need a one-box supplier manufacturer, or do you need a component suppliers or multiple component suppliers? Is there a specific industry? For example, is it a mobile phone industry, or what kind of industry is it? Do you wish for a different location or a specific location? And also, depending on where you are in the product's life cycle, will there be changes between the different batches? If there will be changes, maybe you definitely need to consider this compared to if you go to Far East, then you probably won't be able to have. So these kind of things would be some of the first things I would ask for, people would ask for when you need to choose a production partner. So where to find the right supplier for your company? And this is very tricky because that's not super easy, but one of the first thing to look is industry fairs. So if you have a specific type of products within a specific industry, you would go to fairs. I don't know if it's that possible these days, but when it opens up again, or maybe it's like an online version, talk to the companies. Ask competitors' company, what are their experiences? What kind of experience do they have working with different kind of products? And this is also David from MyWire will also be talking about this. What kind of experience will he have with this kind of things? You can look at who is producing your competitors' products. That's very super relevant, especially if it's within a special industry. It's a network search. Ask who you have in your network. Be specific what you ask for. There are production platforms. For example, Alibaba, there is also Danish platforms relating to like the same kind of platforms. I put in a link here. We will send out the presentation afterwards. That's a Danish platform like Alibaba, just in Denmark, where it's listed all the, in this matter here, for electronic manufacturers in Denmark. Basically, when you work with different production partners, they are probably all gonna fuck you up. And that can be a little tough to say, but you can actually deal with this. You can actually plan your way out of making sure that, or making your best for them not to be able to fuck you up. So one of the first thing you need an NDA with the production partners. And even the number of sold goods and when they are delivered, they are your company secret, and you wish to not share that with other ones. You need to make them sure that you need to make your supplier know that you take care of your IP. And just as an example, if, for example, the manufacturer is also producing for direct competitors, and that's sometimes how it is, then make sure to add a line in the NDA stating that when your batch is being produced, make sure your competitors, they're not allowed in the production facility at that point. That can be put in the NDA. Of course, you can also go there when they produce your batch and say, okay, at this point, we don't want others to come in here. Purchase agreements, they are a super important tool when other or people are manufacturing for you. And that's where you put, what is the delivery time? When I put an order, when will I have the order ready for shipment? What are the MOQs? What are the capacities? If you order 1,000, how long time will it take? If I now order 100 pieces, how long will that take? It's about price agreements. Do you have a variable price agreement? You order 100, it's one price, 1,000, next price. It's about warranty. Who's carrying the cost? If something is faulty, you need to go replace components all over the world. Who's taking the cost there? It's a reference to a production agreement, production package. Revision is super important to keep your revision here, because that's your contract of what you're producing, or what they're producing is delivered is also what you actually want. I just took a little here. This is some input to the supply agreement and production, and this is the production package. And especially if you're a startup and you didn't try to set up a production before, it's important to know that you have a production package that needs to be pretty fulfilled. And this is super important when you want to set up a reliable production. Be sure that all the details are documented and verified. So for example, this is just an example. The first column, consumer electronics, it has an item number, it has a version number, it has a description. This is a toothbrush, probably an electronic toothbrush. Then you have a production package. And in this case, of course, this is not a complete list. It could be other things, but mainly you have 2D drawings, PDF drawings, you have 3D steps, you have a TPS, technical purchase specification. What do they look like? That's the specification that does not describe the things that's on the 2D. You have a version description, maybe you have different colors, maybe you have different textures and the surfaces and stuff like this. You have production labels, you have labels sitting on your product. What do they look like? You have a packaging, how is it packed? What does the box look like? Was it color? There's a packaging label, the label sitting on the box. It probably needs to have a barcode or something like this. What should that be? Maybe there's attachments, there's a manual inside, maybe there's a warranty description and stuff like this. You have a PCB layout. If you have a one-box supplier, you need to give them everything, and everything needs to be documented and to be ready so they can, so you're sure that what you send out is the right thing. And you have a software package as well. So that's basically some of the things that you need to be aware of and documented when you go out, reach out to suppliers. You need to know exactly what it is you want. Also, another things which you at first maybe do not consider, you need to build a product to test your product. So for example, or as an example, this could be tolerance tools. Do you need tools for if you need to have something that needs to fit within something else? Make sure you provide the supplier or the manufacturer with tolerance tools. It can be test procedures, it can be units tests, self-tests, if the product needs to self itself. It's about the manufacturing, design for testing, DFT, engaged into the supplier management system. when you go into this kind of suppliers, ask what are their quality system and try to interact with that. That's a super important thing to be sure to get the right quality at the right time. Yes, that's basically it for me. Afterwards, there will be Q&A. I think I will head the word back to Thomas.
Thank you very much, Morten. So yeah, we have a Q&A session after, so we have time for questions, but also please feel free to ask questions directly in the Q&A section in the bottom of your screen. But anyway, now it's time to hear from a real life startup, FutureBox startup Meyerwire, and CEO David Fleischer. David, are you with us?
Yes, I think so. Depending on if you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, good.
Please share your screen if you have slides to share.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, I will start just to give you a brief introduction of what we are actually doing, the product that we're doing, or maybe even more important, the solution that we are providing. And we are solving the issue when people have no internet, because that means that no internet today almost is equivalent with no life. Maybe we can just say digital life. And if my presentation will run. We did this by developing a directional antenna that enforced the signal between the mast in the 3G, 4G mobile network and the device, the modem. So you can provide a strong internet connection using the existing network. And the heart of this is the directional antenna. And if we just look at the product, more or less how it looks today, we made it as a simple way of installing on the top of the pole. It is a mechanical turning device with the directional antenna here on top. It has batteries and everything is built together in a waterproof cabinet. And the top shield here is providing a protection against high temperature, low temperature, and direct sunlight. So this is the product, more or less how it looks today. And then going a little bit, I think in my presentation, I'm almost going backwards, but for you to understand the product, we are now producing today. We have a mass production setup, and some of the core elements in the construction or in the solution is of course the electronics, the printed circuit boards that we are a company called Dankel produced for us today. And at a point in time, they also did our box building. And if you look at this picture to the lower left, it's a small production cell that we started up here in Denmark in the Dankel facilities. And that was a very good start because everything was very controlled, and the demand of documentation was quite strong. So we had to live up to what they requested us to do in order to produce the product and do the box building or the assembly. And that again, led us to the state of building the bill of material that Morten also talked about, the specification. What I don't think that he really touched is the logistics about producing the orders to the manufacturers and the suppliers and partners, which is quite a demanding process. Even though I think our product is relatively simple, there are more than 100 items. Now I'm not talking about all the screws and brackets and so on, but items that you really need to specify. That alone is quite a thing. And I would say you probably also will realize this the day you start mass production, something like this is necessary, and we put a lot of efforts into it. But it's a great help for us today. So when that being said, that was a good learning curve, and our procedures are now well described, and we are now able to build, as I said, mass production, series production, and the biggest batch we built in one was 350 units, including packaging and everything. And that is quite also demanding. It doesn't sound like a lot, but even just the space that it takes up when it's packed is quite big. But then from the process of being at Dankel, the box building, then we found out that the price of a box building was simply too high. We had to do something about it. One big element was that the hourly rate was quite high compared to what you could say is not very demanding when the procedures are described and well documented and in the right conditions. So therefore, we actually started now to take the production a little bit back to try, first of all, to optimize the procedures and the flow, but also to reduce the demand of how qualified people we need to do the assembly. So therefore, we simply took a step backwards, took it back, also because during Corona, our production has been very much decreased because of the export markets are not alive anymore for us. So we are starting to build up again. But that gave us the time and the idea of optimizing the production. So now simply today we made a complete setup in 2 40-foot containers and with work areas and building some of the practical things that makes it logistically easy to handle, from you taking all the components from the warehouse into the production, and then building it in one workplace, and also even the programming and testing and so on in one workplace. And now we are living out the idea, and this is a start of how we are testing that this will work. And this is actually going on in one of the rooms just beside where we are sitting right now here in the FutureBox. But the idea is when everything is tested and optimized, we will build the first containers in order for us to be able to move outside the country into countries like Kenya and Brazil. And why do we do that? Because it turns out that to import the products, you would either pay a very, very high import tax, or you need to do a greater part of the assembly, at least locally. So many things brought us to this idea. And that's probably my short presentation of where we are today. And then I like to actually switch to something which is going a little bit backwards, because I like to tell you about how the development process actually worked out and was very agile. So instead of sharing the presentation, I don't know if, you can see my screen now, and I like to show you the difference between how the product looks like today. Everything now ready and nice looking, at least I think, coming from the very basic ideas of how should it look when we started. The heart of the construction or the design is actually the directional antenna, and that was all what it was about, to get the antenna rightly connected to the modem and the router and the power supply and the SIM card and what have we, a number of things. But it started with this one being the heart of it. And everything now then was the work around that idea. And with a number of iterations, thanks to 3D printing, we can do a lot of stuff today. And yeah, this is probably looking very messy to you, but I think it's what it takes. Honestly, I think that the development process and the agile process is extremely important, because I would never have thought that the product would look like this when we started. So again, the heart was a directional antenna, and all the other stuff around it was something that came up in order to do it right and make a strong construction and a number of both hardware and software iterations. And I repeat myself when I say thanks to 3D printing, because that was actually what saved our, I would say, our budget. Because if I should have ever thinking back of not being able to 3D print, I don't think that we would be having a product today, honestly. I think we did about 20 iterations before we came to what it looks like today. And a lot of it is, of course, the mechanical part, but everything is injection molded components. And if you don't know, I can inform you that components like this, they are quite big. This is 35 centimeter in diameter. It's even hard to find someone in Denmark that can do it. And not to forget someone that can help you through the process, because, and that's where I'm coming back to the agile process. It's really important to get into these development projects on the right level of the companies that you should work with. So I was blessed, I was lucky, I would say, when I'm looking back, when we should start the molding and the design for that. We contacted one of the biggest companies in Denmark called SP Molding. And by luck, I think, the management, the manager, he actually, the managing director, he took me into the first meeting and listened to our crazy idea. And from day one, he actually liked it and supported us. And he formed a small project group. And he also told us, well, I think really that you should do the development of the final design together with us, because then it will be much easier when you come to the molding process. And yeah, again, he pointed at some partners that they worked with before. And the group of the four of us was, I think, the direct reason for success, because imagine we have 5 different injection molded components, and the number of mistakes you can do when you are designing this if you don't have the, I mean, really truly expertise in doing injection molding. There are so many things you can do wrong, very few things that I would have done right myself. But the fact that this was on the agenda of the management meant that we got attention, and I'm starting with the best experience I have ever in this. But it's also for me to say it is important that you get the right connection to the company. And then coming a little further down, I mean, we also worked well together with Dankel. They did our PCB, and I think they are extremely qualified, and we chose them because they are doing equipment for the medical industry, and so that the demand of quality and procedure and so on are quite high, and we were aiming at that, because our product, if there's one thing that can kill us, is if the product do not have a very long lifetime, because it's placed high up. You need a ladder or a lift even to get up if something is wrong. So it simply cannot we cannot live with a poor quality. So Dankel was a great help, and they also forced us through quite a heavy documentation of all the procedures. And again, today I'm very happy about it, but I can also tell you that we had a lot of arguments during that process, but it was right. So my message is, listen, although it's hard work, and sometimes I think it turns out that they are experts, so you better listen. What we now did, Thomas, I don't know what is the time like. Am I?
We have plenty of time actually, David, but we have a question for you, if that doesn't derail you. A participant is asking, during this development, how integrated was design competencies in your company?
Yeah, since the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, Michael Espersen, he's taking responsibility for the software and the hardware. I mean the PCBs and the software. And I was myself taking care of the design and the mechanical solution. So yeah, you can say very deep and well integrated, but of course I took in a young guy that was extremely good in SolidWorks design, and Michael, we teamed up with two companies. First, Prevas for the software and hardware, and secondly, Move Innovation. So I mean, it was not ourselves all the way. So we, to a very large extent, we have been using consultants, but with us, as you can say, taking the lead.
Thank you. Did you have more of your presentation left, David, or are you open for more questions?
No, I have no more slides, but I'm open for all the questions that you might have.
All right. So I know that you have worked a little bit with Morten previously, right? When you participated in an acceleration program, Danish Tech Challenge in FutureBox. What was the biggest insight you got from working with him during that time? Yeah,
I mean, it's, as I said, it's crucial that you get all your documentation together. And Morten, he was looking at our documentation, and he had. We were quite far in the process at that time, but I think that the thing that you have somebody to have a confidential discussion with, and also testing out that the decisions we took about selecting the right partners. I mean, you can sit in your own little box and think, but mainly you need somebody to help you and evaluate if you take the right decision. And very much, of course, some simple stuff like Morten also presented. Where do you go? Do you go abroad or do you stay at home? Very much depending on what you want to achieve. High volume, low price, or are you aiming at high quality, control of the process, and so on. So, I mean, these are important inputs in the process.
All right. Thank you, David. We have another question here. I think that's for Morten. So Morten, what is the most common mistake you hear from startups who have tried to do this on their own?
And he probably means setting up production on their own, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think some of the big issues is that you're not all finished yet. So you go to a producer and you want to get something produced, and it's not completely right in the closet yet. It needs maybe a revision or two. And that's just, it's tricky how to handle that. So development process together with production, it's not the easiest task, but it's way easier when you have it close to you. If you have production partners that are pretty close to you, and then it's way easier to do this kind of iterations. And if you find something need to change in the product, along when you started to produce it, it's just easier to have it here. I both tried myself to set up productions in Far East and also here in Denmark. And it's just, when you go Far East, you need to be pretty sure that your whole production documentation is pretty much where it's supposed to be.
Thanks. All right, we have a question for David. David, how much have you invested in the development process, and is your business for, you know, is that all you do, and is that how you earn all your money? Is that what you live from?
Earning all my money, yeah. We're still bringing money with us from home every day, even though we are quite far. But I can say that if I should give a nice round figure, which is absolutely not probably correct, but I would say, I mean, today we raised capital in the area of 20 million. And we're not not all of it is for the Roudem, because we also now started the maritime version. I mean, if you take everything into consideration, it's maybe at this point in time, it's probably rather 15 millions to get to here. And we are now started selling, and we're still burning money. But the burn rate is going down, and if it was not because of Corona, we would probably have been doing like this, because we lost the orders to Brazil. So yeah, we're still burning money every day, and we will continue doing this, and not least to the maritime version that we are now developing. And I guess that we will need another 5 at least to get the maritime at a level where we can start sell it.
Thanks.
So it's heavy business.
Sure is. We have another question for you, David. Someone's asking, what type of product data management system are you using? Our own, I would say, because we started to develop the system that I just briefly showed you a screenshot from. But that's a database mainly that we did in FileMaker. We had one of our partners, he is very good at this and doing something familiar to what Morten is doing. Not as product specific, but he did that. He's doing lean management, production lean management. So he helped us a lot in that process. And again, I can say, as all the other elements that we got in the basket, it's extremely important to get this right, because otherwise you die from not having the right drawing version to this bill of material version. And when you change something, how do you control this? If it was in an Excel sheet, you wouldn't manage. So doing this right in a database system, it could probably be anyone. We choose FileMaker because that was easy accessible. So that's own developed, with the benefit that it is closely connected to our new network management system. So our systems are closely linked without too many APIs between them. So that's working well. Okay, thank you. So, okay, we have another question here. That's probably for both of you. How do you avoid that your production partner neglects you and prioritizes bigger clients?
Want to start, Morten?
Yeah, well, I can say that from my own experience is when you have an agreement with them, so you know that when you already have a production up and running, when you press the order button, when you have an agreement with them saying that you're they are 100% sure, or they are pretty sure that they can deliver after a certain amount of time. So if you have a supply agreement, that would be pretty neat in being able to not being down prioritized for bigger clients.
Right. And then a follow-up question that fits well is, what does a good standard frame agreement look like?
A frame agreement, like a supply agreement, or?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
I guess there are many ways, different ways of doing this. You can probably go online and find some templates for a supply agreement, and they're probably pretty long. But basically, the things I also said before, that's kind of some of the more important stuff to put there. So delivery time, what is the price, the quality level, and stuff like this. They would be the main elements in this kind of things. And of course, lawyers, they can always overcomplicate everything, and it's a 50-page document. So it depends on what kind of temper you have, depending on what kind of agreement you need to make. We also have lawyers here in the house that can help you with different kinds of legal agreements, like a supply chain agreement.
David?
Yeah, I don't think that there are two alike because, I mean, it's all depending on, I mean, probably many of the manufacturers, they have some standard agreements, but they can be very long and very short, as Morten mentioned, and then you have your own private interests that you need to take care of. So they will not be two alike, I guess. You will need to work it out for your special purpose.
Mm-hmm. We have a question here for you, David. Did you only start mass production when you started selling, or did you set up production based on projections?
Yeah, good question. We actually started to do the first, you can call it maybe not mass, but series production of 100 units. Yeah, only 80 of them worked. so that was the first learning. And then we started a campaign, more or less parallel, and the campaign was quite intensive. And we sold around 50 of the 80 that worked within the first couple of months, and then they came slowly. But yeah, that was how we did it.
Mm-hmm. All right, and a question from Morten here. Can you realistically do Far East manufacturing without feet on the ground for quality ? And how to do that for a small Danish company?
That's a really good question. I guess it also depends what kind of components you want to produce. So if it's a simple component, if it's a small bushing or something like this, I wouldn't go to Far East for that. But if it's like a one-box supplier that you need a complex product to be produced Far East, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You have to be there, or you have to have an agent there, or you have to have someone there represented, because it's just so complex, everything. So I think it depends on what kind of product. So if you have a product with both electronics and injection molding, and you have some mechanics and stuff like this, there is a lot of interaction going on. And if you never try to set up a production floor, it's really something that's super difficult to plan with. So from your startup, working with the company until you have the first batch produced, the planning of this is super, super difficult. How long time does that take? And that's a really, really good question. It can take like from a month to a year or something like this to set it up, depending on the supplier and how much effort you put into it. How many problems there are, something needs to change, or really a lot of things like this. So I guess it depends on what kind of component or product you want to get produced there.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to add to that the simple components. I mean, when you're able to specify by 3D drawings and material and stuff like this. This is a bearing house, for instance, made out of a material called POM, and the bearings inside and this is a slip ring and stuff like this. This is all produced according to specific drawings and specifications and so on, and done from China with excellent suppliers from China. The motor with gears and everything is also directly imported out of China, and some is standard products from them, and with a little twist to fit into our construction. But I definitely think it's possible, and I mean, now I'm only talking my own experience, but we have really good experience with the willingness and the readiness of the suppliers in China. I'm amazed, I would say. And during Corona, we had a huge, have a 2,000 piece order with some of the with long lead time suppliers, and they all, I mean, accepted. This is not your fault. We keep your items on stock. We help you. We send them and so on when you're ready. Excellent.
Yep.
One addition to this, another thing that could like be a positive thing is that if you know that the Far East producers, if they have customers like big customers and someone that where they have to produce a high quality, from my experience, it's way easier to set up a production with them. At one point, I had a supplier in China, and they did small pieces for HP for all the printers, and they were like, I never saw quality as they could make. I never tried someone in Denmark who could make aluminum parts that was kind of on that quality level. So definitely it's possible to find someone there.
We have a question from Gitte. She's asking, there's nothing about the sustainability of the production partner. Is that not a factor in the process of picking a partner?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That is of course an issue, and I mean when I'm using, for instance, China and Alibaba to find partners abroad, I mean the very good thing about it is that they actually have an evaluation of each of the companies, so you can actually use the evaluation, and I don't know. My experience is that they are quite honest and true, and one thing is for sure: if you just mention a bad comment about them during the Alibaba or Made in China platform, I can tell you they run. So I think it's working well.
All right. We also have a question from Sasha, who's asking, how big a quantity did you produce in the first batch? How did you land on that specific number, and what decisions were involved in this process?
100 is a round figure. And it was financially something that we could overcome. And we believed that we could also sell it, and so that was probably the three parameters.
Sometimes you also have like an MOQ from some of the component suppliers. At some of the suppliers I use in China, they're saying like you cannot order less than 600 items if it's, for example, small items or something like this. That's unrealistic. Or maybe some others they will even say even more. So it also depends on what kind of suppliers and what are their MOQ for the components.
Mm-hmm.
That's another quite important factor, is that the number that we started to produce need to present you can say a statistic number that would validate the quality and how strong the product worked. So, I mean, producing 10 probably would not be statistically usable. So you need to get to a number where you trust that this is not a coincidence that your product survive. It has to be statistically well proven.
Right. We also have a question from Giorgio. He says 1,000 assembled PCBs times €50 each assembled in China is quickly €50,000 order. How do you manage this risk when the supplier requires advance payment?
you don't order 1,000 in the first batch. That's for sure. You order a small batch, test it out, stress test. Yeah, find out if the components that he actually used are the one that you specified, from the right supplier. Yeah, there are many things you need to do before you order 1,000 and place an order of 50,000 euros, and start small. That's my best advice.
All right. And maybe a final question, unless more pops up. Okay, we have a question here from Katrine. I guess that's for you, David. Where would you be without FutureBox?
Yeah, I can say one thing is very important. It would be much more dull than it is today. I mean, we had a lot of good coaching from both Morten and Thomas and a number of others, Camilla and Jan and so on, and Christina. So I mean, the coaching, you can say the professional part of it is I would say second to none program. You are running through. At that time, I think it was 12 different disciplines that you need to step up to. You need to be able to, I mean, something like your IPs, people really focused on the IPs, on this that we're talking and discussing now, the production and the documentation and the price setting, the market, and so on. I mean, there are so many disciplines that, yeah, you can probably see from the color of my hair that I have been in the professional life for many years, and I've been managing director of medium-sized companies, and I thought I knew almost what it would take to start up a company from bottom. But I honestly, I can say I learned so much from various part of the business life that I would never imagine that I should learn at this late stage in my career. And then, I mean, honestly, I mean, it is really encouraging, and it cheers you up when you're down to have colleagues and partners in the same situation as yourself, having a hard time getting the budgets together, having a small party. Now, at that time, we had a lot because it was not Corona. So many factors, and we're still in FutureBox today. We stay here due to the environment, due to the agile and lively, nice atmospheres among the other startup investors walking in and out the house. Danish Technical University just around the corner. So many things. Yeah, and then we won, by the way, a prize.
Yeah, good job. Okay, we have one final question here from Sasha. Did you outsource any task completely, or did you always make sure you had someone in-house with that specific skill?
You can say the hardware, I mean, the printed circuit boards, Michael was parallel looking at it all the time, and he's got some professional knowledge about it, but he's not an expert for sure. So that was probably where we were on site and watching it, but we couldn't have done it ourselves, any of us.
All right. Thank you, Morten. Thank you, David. This was super inspiring. I hope everyone who attended benefited a lot from it. I'm sure they did. I'm gonna round off for today and just that's the Q&A slide. So as I mentioned in the beginning, if any of you who participated today would like to visit us here in FutureBox for a coffee meeting with me and Morten, or Morten and my colleague Peter, reach out. Shoot me an email or give me a phone call and we'll set it up. That's on us. It's completely free for you. We would just like to get to know you. And also my colleague Thomas Hebo has just shared a link in the chat to our next webinar, which will be on the 8th of December. And the topic for that one is how to ramp up valuation in your startup. That's all for today. Thank you very much for participating. Hope to see you again soon. And have a great evening.